Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ben Crossman, and everyone out there, I hope that you're having a wonderful day and you are ready for some Computer America. So, let's see. So today on the program, entire thing is dedicated to our segment with Sandy Berger. If you have not been fortunate enough to, be here when Sandy Berger has been here, it's been a little while and we have missed our chats. And today is going to be something that I think everyone can definitely relate to, and that's going to be about, how do I put this nicely? Internet problems. They are one of the most infuriating problems that you can have. So we're going to talk all about troubleshooting and also about a lot of key parts of your internet. If you are not the most savvy when it comes to, just doing basic troubleshooting, then this will be the show for you, because one of the most annoying things is to go out there and, to call someone out, and turns out it's something that was either very, very simple or, just something that's completely not your fault, which both happen about equal times. So this will be a good show for you. Let's go ahead and talk about computeramerica.com. That's where you'll find everything, including today's show notes. There will also be links to our guest website. There will be links to any articles, topics, products, anything like that. You can find that at computeramerica.com. And so all that and more, and sorry for typing like that. So all that and more, computeramerica.com. We also have reviews, products, op-eds, articles, things like that. A lot of great content, and there should be some more coming in the next couple of weeks, so keep an eye out for that. With that being said, find us on social media at Computer America on any of the social media sites. And why don't we go ahead and get started? So we're, as I said before, Copykiss.com. This is her website where she, puts all of her different articles, but of course she has written for many, many, many different publications, and she is oh so nice to, of course, come here every single month and talk with us about, just everything consumer electronics. She has been a huge, wealth of knowledge when it comes to cameras, printers, computers, phones, tablets, and more. So everyone, let's go ahead and hopefully this works. We're going to unmute her right now. Hopefully this works. Welcome onto the program once again, Sandy Berger. Sandy, are you there? Perfect. This is exactly perfect. So, Sandy, if you can hear me, unfortunately, we're not able to hear you for some reason. Well, we're going to assume that she's going to be back here in just a moment, and I probably should have prepared better for this eventuality, but hey, live radio, what are you going to do? So, while we wait for Sandy Berger to, and it looks, she's muting and unmuting herself, so, she's definitely there, just unfortunately something with, let's see, what audio, hey, why don't we do some quick troubleshooting of our own? Let's see, so,
I think I found it.
Hey, she found it. There she is. So everyone, once
Our
again, Sandy
troubleshooting was short. Good.
Yeah, hey, those are the best kinds of troubleshooting. So everyone, welcome onto the program once again, Sandy Berger. Sandy, other than that, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Yeah, just fine.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. Yeah, and of course I know that we share a state, and I got to say that after that big snowstorm the other day, yesterday, it's beautiful out. Oh my God, it's wonderful.
Well, I'm in the warmer part of the state of North Carolina, and we got a covering of snow, but it was nothing that had any problems. It just let the kids get a view of what it looks like when it snows.
Well, you know, and we were actually watching the local news here yesterday when the snow started to come down, and they were like, "Oh, there's a run on the grocery stores. Everyone's stocking up on food and supplies." And I don't think there were any reports of like any roads being shut down for like literally 0 hours, and people are just they're so scared that like snow's just going to trap them forever. But I guess that's just North Carolina. So enough about the weather. Why don't we go ahead and give them a little bit of your background and what it is that you hope to do by coming on to Computer America.
Well, my background is technology, has been for years and years and years. I've actually dealt with a lot of different readers in my writing about technology. So I worked for AARP for 8 or 9 years, and that actually got me in touch with the older generation. Then I also have written many, many times for Hardware Secrets, and that is the geeky crowd. So I run the gamut. I try to explain technology into put it in words that people can understand, and that's what I'm trying to do, and that's what I'll do here today if I can.
Yeah, and if you can is a big operative phrase because obviously when it comes to internet troubleshooting, it's one of those things that you know I've dealt with in kind of my personal life, and at the same time we've helped a lot of listeners out there with their issues as well. It's one of the most common things to break, and I think that's unfortunately because just people don't really understand even their home internet network, I guess, kind of setup. You know, they just don't understand the basics, and so when things break, they have to call, make appointments. They have to get someone out there, a technician, to do even the most basic of things. So I'm hoping that we, you know, cover, of course, the basics, and we talk about, you know, some of the more common troubleshooting that we can do. And although I have to ask, you know, usually when a correspondent, you know, comes with us. With a comes to us with a topic like this, usually it's indicative of what they've been dealing with in their own lives. Have you had internet problems lately?
I have had some problems of my own, and I've had quite a few customers with problems because I still go out and do consulting work. So I help people, you know, with their individual problems. And what I'm finding is that with streaming now, streaming television, everybody wants to get on the bandwagon, hopefully save money, get rid of cut the cable, as they say, and all that. But they find that the internet is not working well enough or consistently enough, or they don't know what to do, basically. They don't know if it's their fault, as you talked about earlier, it's the fault of the internet provider, or, you know, is it the equipment? So
Yeah. So you're saying that and that's actually pretty interesting because that's a statistic that we like to keep track of, and this is obviously your anecdotal experience, but streaming, you know, streaming services and really the number of them, and we'll talk about, you know, a lot of the different ones that are kind of catching your eye, but people are looking to cut the cable, and I guess like one of the biggest barriers to cutting the cable versus, well, you know, keeping cable versus streaming content, one of the biggest barriers is, of course, the setup, you know, just having to learn an entirely new system that in some cases, you know, like let's say my parents grew up with television their entire lives, and, you know, the thought of being without that just seems like a very weird and foreign concept. But you're saying that, you know, hey, people are warming up to the idea outside the traditional, you know, very, very young age.
that's right, they are. I'm just getting questions all the time. Yesterday, I spoke to a group of about 150, and what they wanted to talk about was streaming television. Now we went over a lot of other topics too, but that was the one that most people were interested in.
Very, very cool. And I guess my first question to you, and before we get to the internet thing, this group that you talked to and this discussion, there's a lot of ways to kind of start this. There's, of course, just getting a computer. There's streaming devices. I think there are a few set-top boxes that kind of mimic a cable box. Of course, there's, Roku, Apple TV, Fire Stick, and what have you. Smart TVs. I mean, there's a lot of ground to cover there. How do you, I guess, kind of introduce people to this idea that, hey, you can get everything you want through a different device? Like, do you start by saying, go out and get a Chromecast and then we'll talk? Or how do you bridge this big, wide topic?
Well, when they want to go to streaming TV, I explain to them that they might not be getting everything that they want for the price that they want. In other words, sports, yes, you can get a lot more sports than you used to be able to, but it's still a little bit problematic to get sports and to get the news channels that they want and all that. So we have a discussion about what they want and then try to tailor something to them, which is easiest to get. Now, the biggest or one of the biggest drawbacks to all this is internet speed. A lot of people have internet. A lot of people have wireless internet because they're working on iPads or cell phones or something that they want Wi-Fi with. But people don't realize that they need faster speeds to be able to do television without having to watch that little ball go round and round and round as the internet's trying to come in or
Right.
catch up.
Yeah, and really setting it all up. So, what would you say are some of the most common issues when it comes to internet connections? And then we can kind of knock them out one by one. But what would you say is kind of like, I don't know, in your experience, what's the easiest or the most common solution to a lot of problems that people experience?
The most common solution is to reset the equipment. And that means for some people, people will have either usually a cable modem, is we're talking cable across the board. So they will have a cable modem and a router, a Wi-Fi router. Sometimes those two devices are, of course, built into one. So usually the quickest solution is to reset the modem and reset the router. If they're in one, you only have to do it once. But the best way to do that is to unplug it from the wall, or at least unplug it at the device. Let it for 30 seconds. If you have two separate devices, you renew the modem. In other words, you plug back the modem in first, and then when that's all set up and the lights are on, then you plug back the Wi-Fi router. Now, that
Yeah.
takes care of a lot of problems.
Yeah, it's I've tried turning it off and on again. It's kind of a running joke among people who kind of do that kind of troubleshooting, because it's always the first step. It doesn't cost you anything except a couple of minutes, and it really does kind of fix a lot. And you kind of just went through the steps of resetting, of course. And by the way, I just kind of have to ask you, because I've learned this about myself, that I surround myself with technology, and that my setup is not indicative of everyone else's. Most people, they don't buy their own routers. They don't even know what their modem is, and sometimes they have a modem router built into one. Do you think that most people understand, kind of the hardware and really, I guess, kind of their network, their setup in their own home?
I guess when I really have to think about it, I think it's about 50-50. I'll go into someone's home and half of the people will know what the modem is, what the router is, where they're at, and some people don't even have an idea of where they're at. But if you're running cable, whether it be TV or streaming for your internet, there's always going to be a modem and always going to be a router, even if those two devices are one.
Right.
And like you said, a lot of people rent that device or those devices they either rent a modem or they rent a modem/router from their service provider. Now, the cost of that can be between $8 and $10 a month. And that really adds up.
Yeah.
So, one thing that they can do to save money, because they're looking to stream to save money, is to actually get their own modem and their own router. And that can be a little
Yeah.
pricier, or you're actually putting the money out right at once. but that way for several years, at least you don't have to pay the monthly fee.
So the only thing I will say about that is read the fine print depending on your provider. I won't say which one I have because I have been not so nice to them on the show. And if I ever name them, that would be bad. But in their fine print, I was renting my own router and I could return that, and I do have my own. But then the modem, that's theirs. And I'll talk about my whole internet experience that I went through and just how frustrating this whole thing can be with even the quote unquote experts of your provider. But anyways, I bought my own modem and they won't let me return it and stop paying that monthly fee. Like, they make me pay the modem fee regardless. So that's something to, really call. That's probably the best advice I have at this point for this is call and ask and see if you could return your equipment after you purchase your own, or I should say before you purchase your own.
Well, I mean, that's probably a good idea because of your experience, but I'll tell you the truth, I've never heard of anybody else who could not just come and say, pick up the router, I don't want to rent it anymore.
The router was fine. It was the modem.
I'm sorry,
only.
the modem.
Yeah.
How can they force you to do that unless you have signed something saying you would rent it for a certain period of time? So I guess you're back to reading the fine print.
Yeah, or really just calling them and hopefully you get someone who knows. And I just have to say that I'll just go ahead and just tell my story, like a condensed story real quick about my internet problems. We've recently, North Carolina, we recently upgraded to, I think it was like 500 megabytes per second. It's one of the fastest that they have for residential homes. And it's very, very good. But at the same time, different tiers of hardware handle different tiers of internet. So, especially when it came to like a router, we had to buy a special router that could handle the increased bandwidth. We had to, we were using some switches, actually like some Netgear switches from like 12 years ago. They were only certified up to 10 megabits per second. And back in the day, 10 megabits a second was blazingly fast, plenty of headroom. But we've since upgraded to like 1 gig switches, and we're very, very happy with those. But all this being said, we had technicians in and out of the house for weeks on end. And one gentleman figured it out, but he wasn't allowed to fix it because what happened was, even though we had our own router that could handle it, turns out that the modem that they supplied to the house couldn't handle the increased bandwidth that was coming from the street, from their own network. So even though we couldn't return the modem, they didn't provide any modems that could handle their own infrastructure, and I had to go out and buy my own modem. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening to this and you're like, buy my own modem, they're cheap. Like, even the top of the line state-of-the-art one that I got, it was like $60, like tops. Modems are very, very, very cheap. But regardless, I had to buy my own modem, fix it, and now everything works beautifully. But I tell you all this, Andy, because, tons of technicians, tons of supervisors, many, many trips out to the house, and it still came down to, enough Googling and enough forums and one person idly saying something to the side before you fix it. And I think that's where so many people get frustrated with the internet and internet issues, is that it takes so long to troubleshoot even the most basic things. Like, no one's perfect at this.
No, and that's very, very true. And there are a lot of complexities when you deal with this. Now, after hearing your entire story, I feel sorry for what you went through, but I don't feel sorry for you getting internet that's that fast. 500 gigs is
I like it.
is fabulous. I mean, I'm sitting here in Pinehurst, and the most I can get is about 225 gigs.
That's still pretty
not
good.
Bad. That's still good compared to a lot of other people.
Now,
it takes that for high def TV.
I was about to say.
If you go 4K, even more. So, well, I can run 4K quite well on 200 megs.
Yeah. I was about to say that the proliferation of high-speed internet, and I would really call that anything better than, let's say, broadband, I think lately has been defined as like 40 megabytes per second. And luckily that, I'm sure that, that group of people that you have there and many, many listeners out there probably, luckily have something close to broadband or over broadband. And hey, and like you said, that opens up the world of streaming. I guess if people were wondering why they weren't doing this before, it's because you might not have had access to the internet that was fast enough to stream, but now you probably do.
That's right. But the question is, how do you know if you have that speed or not? Again, go back to the contract that you might have signed with your internet company, and it'll say one thing, but you're actually getting another one. So you might not be getting the speeds that they even promised you. Sometimes you might be getting over the speed they promised you. So you need to, there's several ways to do that, but speed test is speedtest.net. And you just go there, and they have a wonderful screen that shows download speeds, upload speeds, and a lot of other information. So you know just how fast your speed is. And you can actually, at that website, you can put in your zip code, and they will tell you what providers you can get internet from and how fast of speeds you can get.
Yeah, and that's something where speedtest.net is one of probably the second most important website that you can go to kind of troubleshoot things. I would say the first most important is Google, but not even Google, like, typing into Google, but many people check their, to see if they have internet connectivity. Connectivity based strictly on I think I just showed my IP address. Their internet connectivity just by going to google.com, and I recommend that for everyone real quick, just because it shows Google, and if you have internet access, and there's no ads, there's no pop-ups, there's no clutter, I guess, to kind of just have a website go. So google.com, but yeah, speedtest.net, used it for a long time, highly recommended.
Right. And it's just something that's pretty easy to understand for the average person. Now, I'd say you probably want 100 gigs if you're going to do a lot of streaming or streaming 4K. And a lot of people can get that, some can't. So it just really, really depends. Another thing I want to say about streaming is you have to make sure that your internet connection is going to the device in other words, that your device is picking it up properly. So there's a lot of little details. As you said, it gets a little bit complex when you get in there. One way to test your internet connection is to use an Ethernet cable, to take a laptop or something movable and plug it in directly. And that way you can see the speeds that you should be getting.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. That's and really, you're like, I'm getting flashbacks to all the technicians I had, and could you take a laptop into the room with the modem, plug it directly into the modem, blah blah blah, and really, just to kind of map this out in people's heads, if I can explain this really quick and it might help people. Of course, so you have the line coming from your street, and you have the line coming into your house, comes out of a wall into a modem. Modem is a little box. It's like, I think it's like modulation, demodulation, or something like that. That it stands for. Essentially, it's turning all that garbled internet speak into something that your house can use. So from the street to your house, house to modem, modem to router, router to everything else, either wirelessly or through the back using Ethernet cables. That is generally how most things are set up. And then, of course, you can get into things like switches and multiple routers. But for most families, they probably have one router and just a couple of devices hooked up directly, like you said. And then, many using Wi-Fi. I haven't heard many people really complain that, like, actually, one other thing we can kind of mention off the top of my head, Sandy, have you had any experience with mesh routers? Because that throws a little bit of a wrench into my little explanation there, because I said modem to router and that's it. A mesh router is modem to router to router to router, where they all act as a single router. It's just multiple access points, and it makes it better coverage, easier to understand. It's just one router to the end user, but multiple, kind of access points, like I said.
Right. And the mesh that you talk about is because you think of a net for mesh, and because it covers more area basically, and you can set it up exactly as you want. Now, sometimes these they're very small devices, almost like the ones from Google look like oversized hockey pucks.
Right.
And you place those in your home at various places. They can be wireless, although they'll plug into the wall. Other than that, they'll be wireless. And you can actually devise the coverage that you want and that you need in your home. So you asked me if I know anything about mesh networks. I've been using it since they came out, and I absolutely love it. Because you don't have to worry about extenders or getting the internet to a far corner in your home, anything like that. You just buy an extra little pod or whatever
Right.
shape it's in, and put it through your home, and you get the internet that you've been wanting. So that's very, very useful when you have a home that's got multiple rooms, walls, and things that interfere with the internet. That helps to spread the internet around the house.
Right. Right. And much like I said, much like you're mentioning, are you actually getting internet and really a solid internet connection to your streaming device? Because, let's say you have your router on one side and the TV in your bedroom is on the other. Let's say you go through all the hoops and you're paying for 4K Netflix, you're streaming 4K content to your 4K TV, everything's 4K, you think you're all set up, and turns out you have a mediocre internet connection that can't support 4K. That's probably the worst. So
this is the worst problem for many people, and that can be their entire internet, or it can be just one room where they happen to have the TV that they like to watch. So these are the things you have to look at. And the one thing about the mesh networks that you talked about is that generally, instead of needing a computer to access your network, you can use your cell phone. And it's much easier to understand. Instead of a mess of IP addresses and stuff like that, you just press a button and get a network test and see, is everything on your network working? And they also have a speed test, so you can see exactly how fast of the internet you're getting. As far as anyone who's not really highly technical, the mesh networks are a godsend.
Yeah. Oh, and even people who are technical, I appreciate the extra coverage. I'm starting to put more internet connected devices, and really, for anyone out there, I think who started with, obviously, streaming content and stuff like that, it's kind of like a gateway drug. Eventually, you're going to say, I do want a video doorbell, and then I do want video security lights or something like that. I do want an internet connected garage door opener. Things like that. It's like a gateway drug, and good Wi-Fi coverage in your house lets you have all those very, very easily. So
that's right. And the mesh network will show you all the devices that you have on your network. I believe, Ben, that last time I looked, I had something like 22 different devices on my internet. Now, I am highly networked here. I have Siri and Google and Alexa and all that other stuff. I test out these different devices. So at any given moment, I might have even more. But what people also don't realize, and it goes back to your story about having to upgrade your equipment,
right,
is that you do need to upgrade your equipment every now and then. This is whether you're renting it or you're buying it. If you're renting it and you've had it for more than, say, 4 years, call your internet service provider and tell them you want a new one, and you'll get it. They'll just bring it out. But they're not going to call you
right,
and ask you, are you ready for a new one? No, this is only if you have a complaint. And sometimes you don't even have a complaint, but newer is better as far as security. Newer is better as far as speed goes.
Yeah.
So the problem that I was recently having is that my modem got a little flaky. the thing is, you can't tell whether it's the modem or Wi-Fi or what it is. But I had to reset the modem and router several times a day, and got a little bit tired of that, and tried to troubleshoot it a little bit, and decided that it probably is the modem. So I went out and bought a new modem, which has now been on for 2 weeks without having any glitches. So obviously that was
Not
my
bad.
problem.
Yeah. And really, when it came down to it, you mentioned that you were restarting your modem router. That was solved for a little bit. And I guess my main question is, how could you tell the difference between, replacing the modem and replacing the router? And I'm sorry for making you repeat yourself, but obviously one or the other could have been it. Like, did you just try, just one and then the other, or?
Well, you see, that's the real problem, especially, and it's this way with any problem that you have. If it's an intermittent problem, if it's off all the time, you can tell right away what device it is, or if the lights on one device or the other are flashing. But when you just get this, you're just not making the connection fully. Matter of fact, some of my devices would be on
Mm-hmm.
and some would be off. So that just to me, it meant that the signal wasn't strong enough to get through to all my devices.
That
And
makes sense.
obviously, I have a lot of devices. Also, it was an easy decision because my router is 2 years old, but the modem was 6 years old.
Mm.
6 years, I thought, even if it's not the modem causing the problem, it's probably wise to replace it in any case. And so that's how I determined that.
Well, and that sounds a lot like the problem I was having with the Switch, where it really didn't come into play until it was a big issue. And you mentioned this with just upgrading your equipment every once in a while for security reasons, of course, but also just for technical reasons. That Switch, like I said, 10 years ago, 10 megabits per second on every one of the ports. Back when the average internet speed was 6 megabits if you were lucky, so 10 on every switch, you were golden for a long time. But then it started to be a bottleneck, and really, having these newer pieces of equipment like a newer modem, of course, it made the internet faster, and I could keep the connection. But I mean, it just seemed to really improve everything. There's not many technologies, though, I would say, that you have to run out and get. But you said 6 years, just for you. 4, 5, 6 years seems to be about right. For some of these crucial pieces of your household network.
Right. Yeah, you have to know that you're going to put a little bit of money into making these things work consistently for a
But I would still
fairly long
say,
time.
I would still say that a good router. Like, I'm sitting here staring at the Netgear Nighthawk 10 whatever. Not needed at all. But I'd say like a good router, you're looking at 80, 100, maybe like low $120. And if you keep that for 4 years, $8 a month, $10 a month, whatever you are renting it, pays for itself twice over. So
Exactly.
investment.
Exactly. Yeah. And I did buy a modem that was a little stronger, a little more powerful. It actually has 2 Ethernet ports on it, so I could run
Yeah.
2 home networks, which I thought was pretty cool. That way, if I wanted to test somebody's computer here at home, I wouldn't have to put them on my own network.
That's interesting.
I could have a testing network. Also, I bought one that was a 10 plus gigs. Now, I told you I'm only getting 300
Yeah.
gigs, megs instead of, not even 1 gig, in other words. I have hopes to be in your position at some point in time where they're going to upgrade me to higher internet, and I really doubt that it's going to happen in the lifetime of my modem. But I thought for an extra $20, I'll go ahead and get, the slightly better one.
Right. Well, and that's what I said, was that modems are actually one of the cheapest pieces of hardware, and you can get a really good one for a really good price. So, I'm happy that you went with it. And even beyond that, like going with a reputable, high quality modem, even though it may seem like, like you said, you're giving yourself a lot of headroom in potential upgrades. At the same time, what differentiates one piece of hardware from another. You may have, I guess, kind of graduated, it might be a word. You might have graduated to a better hardware solution. Like that modem may handle your internet connection better than a cheaper, more, I guess, kind of appropriate modem. So it does make a difference. Even if you're not getting 10 gigs from your internet provider,
Right.
it does make a difference.
Right. And where it makes a big difference in cable modems is the DOCSIS, which is just a communications modem in the modem. But it used to be 3.0 and now it's 3.1. Now, that doesn't sound like much of an increase, but there was a huge speed increase in that. So, if you that's one thing I looked for when I bought a modem. And of course, I had to pay a little bit more to get that. They still had some on the shelf that were the older ones of 3.0.
Right, and this DOCSIS DOCSIS 3.1. Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. So if people want to go check that out, for sure. So with all that being said, let's say someone has their modem, their router, they're owning, not renting. Good for them. Everything's set up. They have a mesh network, so they have Wi-Fi all over the house. They're good to go. Where do you kind of send people from there? Do you say, a lot of modern TVs come with the software built in, you get a good, internet connected smart TV, you'll be good to go? Or do you recommend, I guess Roku has been named like the best streaming service, or I'm sorry, streaming device for a number of years running. How do you get people, I guess, onto a platform? And then we can, of course, transition into what do people watch?
Right. Well, I think that when we talk about streaming TVs, there's a big difference between the newer TVs and those that came out maybe 3, 4 years ago that are still smart TVs. And the older smart TVs can get everything you want pretty much, but there might be certain streaming channels that they don't get or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So you can try. I can always say, try your smart TV first. See if it gives you all the apps that you want, and if it does, fine. If not, these devices are so cheap. I just had a customer who actually, what was her problem? Oh, she couldn't use the internet on her TV. The smart TV kept saying, no, the internet is broken. And it was not the internet. She had the company out and everything was fine for the internet. But it was the TV itself. Well, they wanted it was a very large screen TV, but they wanted $600 to fix the motherboard on this TV. And I said, no, just go buy a Roku or buy a Fire TV stick and plug it in, and that will give you internet. And it worked. She got her internet for $30 and she was absolutely thrilled. So these are all things that become involved in it when you start talking about streaming.
Yeah, and even more to that point with the software and TVs, that's something that I guess they haven't been around long enough, or at least they're just starting to be around long enough, that unfortunately sometimes the software actually kind of runs its course before the hardware does, and companies stop supporting it. And I'm thinking some of the older like Vizio TVs and things like that, they were running into issues where people were they were no longer supporting the TVs, even though people were sitting there watching them every single day. They just said, it's just not cost efficient for us to do this. And people had to either get completely new TVs or, like you said, go out and get a Chromecast or something like that to do what they were just doing a day before. Very, very weird times we're moving into.
Right. And the TV manufacturers aren't going to necessarily tell you that either, because 90% of their people, or at least 70%, don't use the smart TV thing. So they're not going to notify everybody that they have a problem. So there's a lot of little details that you get into when you talk about all this stuff.
Right.
But let me tell you another, since we're into troubleshooting, once you get a Roku or a Fire TV stick or anything like that, you can still have some problems with that device. Now, how do you know if it's a problem with that device? So if you turn your TV on, if your internet seems fine, all of your devices are hooking up, but you turn your TV on and just won't go, it's frozen or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
you can suspect that it could be your Roku or your Fire TV. Now, I've had problems, I have both, and I've had this problem not a lot, but at least once or twice with each of those. Um, and so what you do then is you unplug the device from the wall and plug it. So you're just resetting it. But it's just like any other thing, and you don't always think, "Oh, I need to reset my Roku or I need to reset my Fire TV." But you do. Occasionally, you do have to. And I have found that my Fire TV sticks
Mm-hmm.
are much more susceptible to, or much more, I shouldn't say susceptible. Um,
Need
they're
reset more often, yeah.
Yeah, and but they're more susceptible to power outages.
Oh,
So
okay.
when my power, just say it blinks for a minute and all the lights go off and then everything comes back on. My computer will come back on, my Alexa will come back on, but my Fire TV might not come back on. And when I
Mm-hmm.
say not come back on, you don't get a blank screen. It just comes up and you can't do anything with it.
Right.
So that is something to keep in mind if you're getting into streaming. That's just sounds like another thing that can go wrong. But the point is, if you know about it, you can handle it very easily.
So, something that I wish I had remember last time, and I will for future. Like I've been doing a lot of travel lately with CES and just kind of in my personal life, and I got to say I got one of the new. It's like the Chromecast Ultra, I think they're called. They're like 30 or like $40 instead of like
Right.
35. It's good. I love it. One thing that I'm sure that people don't think of right off the bat when they get a streaming device like that, you can take it with you. You can reach behind your TV, pull it out, throw it in your luggage, and then anywhere with an internet connection, and then anywhere with a television, you can get everything you were getting at home and take it with you. Of course, like, they have like Netflix phone apps and things like that. You can stream your phone and all the services that you subscribe to, Netflix, Hulu, so on and so forth, and stream it to any TV with any internet connection. That's something that, the cable industry, they tried a little bit. You could like verify that you have a subscription with
Right.
your cable provider, but it works so much better with like HBO Go and, stuff like that.
Yeah, and I will say Chromecast is the best way to do that if you want to travel with it, because you can get it on your laptop or your cell phone and then throw it over to the TV.
Yeah.
However, there's one caveat, I guess, and that is depending on the type of internet connection you get, it
Hmm.
may or may not work, and that depends on the hotel that you're in. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're in a private home, no problem. But if you're in a hotel, depending on the type of connection that they have, you might run into a little difficulty with that.
Absolutely, absolutely. But it's a nice little perk that is kind of the side because
Right.
I think most people are going to be at home most of the time using this device. So as long as it works. So with that being said, if you wouldn't mind, and of course, equal kudos. Like no one pays me currently, so equal kudos to Apple, to Apple TV and Roku and Chromecast and all that kind of stuff. They're all equally good. And of course, you can look up ratings and stuff like that. But let's talk about the stuff that you can actually watch on it. And I guess this is, like you said, this was a part that people had to come to terms with. Something that I tried to get my household to switch over to entirely streaming, but then, of course, Craig, wouldn't have that because he couldn't get random channels that no one's ever heard of. There is like let's face it, the cable industry has built up over the last 40, 50, 60 years, and they have a lot of channels, they have a lot of content, things that people are used to, are comfortable with, whereas streaming only started, I'd say, with Netflix, maybe less than about 10 years ago. There's still a long way to go. But you can get a lot of content. You just have to know, kind of what you want as an individual, right?
Right. You have to know what you want, and you have to be flexible. One thing about all the streaming is that you might have subscriptions to 5 different things, and usually you have to know what's on Netflix, what's on Amazon, what's on this. Now there's ways around that. So if you get a Fire TV stick, you can say, Lexi, please play Stardust or whatever movie you want. And it will play it no matter where it is. But finding all that stuff can be a hassle. Matter of fact, at my presentation yesterday, I had one lady get up and she said, well, we've got streaming and I really like it. I love the content, but it's so hard. She says, I'm retired. I don't want to work that hard at anything of finding the shows that I want and remembering what streaming app they're on. So it does get a little more complex. And I think you have to be, number one, more flexible, which your dad obviously is not. We understand that. But you have to be a little more flexible in what you watch. You sometimes can't say, I've got to have this, or if you say, I've got to have this particular show and cable's the only way to get it, then you're going to take cable. But streaming offers a bunch of apps that are fabulous.
Have you ever tried the service? And I know that they exist. There's, of course, a lot. I'm sure that there's a number of services, although this is the first one that came up for this search. And it's a service called Just Watch, where it shows all the different content, all the different latest movies and shows and things like that. And it has all the different databases of, Showtime, PBS, Roku, YouTube, Apple TV, Netflix, things like that. And essentially you can either search for a movie or a TV show that you want to watch, or you can browse through the list. And then let's say, just random, 1917, the movie, it would say that, this is only available right now in cinemas. And let's say you do something a little bit more general, Mr. Robot TV. It says that you can find it on Prime Video, DirecTV, Sling USA, and stuff like that. So, there are services like this out there that I guess, that particular lady was having a problem, understanding what content she had. Something like this could help a little bit.
Yes, and there are more things coming on board. This is fairly new, the one you're showing.
Yeah.
There's more things coming on board now that some of them are actually trying to give you a list, like a guide list of everything.
I think Roku's trying to do that, right?
Yeah. Everything that you get, not just, but there's a caveat again in this one, and that is that that would be everything you get. Say you do that through Roku, it would be everything you get through Roku. Now, if you have subscribed to Disney Plus and you have subscribed to Apple Plus and you didn't go through Roku, they're probably not going to be on the Roku guide, which does not exist yet. But so we're just talking about it.
Right.
But that is also a slight problem in streaming. If you have subscribed to Disney Plus directly through them, and there's something wrong with the service, or you can't get unsubscribed or whatever it might be, you call them directly. But if you have subscribed through Roku or through Apple TV, then you have to call Roku or Apple. So you have to actually know how you subscribe to these things.
Yeah.
That's not something that most people keep track of.
Very true.
2 days later, oh, how did I get that show? I don't remember,
Yeah, and actually one person that, or I should say one company that we met out at CES this year was, oh my God, they make the network attached storage software, and I'm trying to think, oh my God, Plex. Oh my God, there we go. Plex.
Plex, yes.
Yeah. Plex. They make network attached storage software that will, kind of organize all your photos and videos and stuff like that. They said that this year they're aiming for that kind of thing, where they're going to have all the content up there. They're going to prioritize what you have access to through streaming services like that. And then what they're going to start doing is saying, I feel like I want to watch The Office. And The Office, turns out, is only available through CBS's new streaming platform, or at least it will in a year. It's like, would you like to subscribe to The Office for however much the subscription is? That's something that Plex is going to start doing, and I think that makes the most sense, is that, if you want to watch content and you don't have access to it, make it super simple and affordable to get that content, and just through one interface. And that's definitely a barrier where you mentioned talking to all these people, they feel it, we feel it, the industry, I would say, as a just as a general sentiment, the industry knows it's a problem and they're working on it, so that's good.
Right. One thing I will say though, that um, it's interesting the way this is all developed. But when I first started watching streaming, and I would put Amazon on, Amazon Prime, and all of the shows would be there, and maybe some would be Prime and some not, but they didn't have shows from other apps or other service providers.
Hmm.
Now they all do. And Apple TV seems to be the one that started this in uh, recently. A couple months ago when they came out, they didn't have enough content.
No.
So they put on there what's called channels. And the channels are HBO, Showtime, and all those other things that you can subscribe to through Apple Plus. Okay. But they don't necessarily tell you when you see these squares of things that are available, like you just showed recently, all this stuff is available, but you got to click on it to see if you have to pay for it or not. You have to click on it to see if you have to subscribe to another app in order to get that. Um, I really, really wish that somebody would only give you the things that you subscribe to, or the freebies or whatever.
Well, and that's kind of a symptom of the internet that a lot of people may be, kind of running into, is that the internet will always try to upsell you. The internet will always try to get you to do something more. Cable TV packages, they're pretty good at, here's the content you have. If you don't see it, call us. But the streaming services will always try to upsell you, and I think that's what that is. They're just trying to make more money.
You think I'm a dreamer to dream about maybe someday not having to deal with that?
It almost sounds like you kind of want an ad block within streaming services. Kind of.
Yeah. That would be one way to put it, where you could block out the things that you have to pay for, or press a button to see what you have to pay for or what you can get for free.
Really, the main service that I have a problem with that is, of course, Amazon. I'm sure that you've used the Amazon Prime service. Their service is just horrible for, do I actually get that, or do I click on it and I have to pay like $1 for it? They're really bad about that. But like Netflix, a la carte, everything on there, that's what you get. You're good to go. So
yeah, Netflix is good in that respect. But who's worse than Amazon is Apple Plus.
Oh yeah?
Apple Plus TV is just terrible because they don't have enough content. Where if you go to something like Disney Plus,
Mm-hmm.
Disney Plus, matter of fact, I like very, very much, but they have so much content. I believe you can subscribe to channels through them, but the main part of what they have is their own content. And you don't have to worry quite so much if you're going to have to pay for something or not.
I feel like I'm missing something, because I subscribed to Disney Plus for like the 1 week trial. And after I binged The Mandalorian, I was like, if they gave me a 2 week trial, I feel like I could watch everything on Disney Plus that I wanted to. It felt like they had more content than Apple. I'll give them that. But, they in no means dethroned, Netflix in terms of content, or YouTube in terms of content. Like, they were a step above Apple, but they're still a long way to go.
Okay, I have a different opinion.
Yeah.
I think Netflix, like you say, has everything, but I thought that Disney Plus had a lot of things. You just have to look deeper to get some of them because there's so much content there.
Hmm.
It's like I watched a few old movies. I can't remember exactly what they were, maybe My Fair Lady or something like that,
Yeah.
on Disney Plus in 4K that was redone, and it was fabulous. Their 4K is excellent.
Hmm.
Where on Amazon, you do get some 4K stuff. Netflix, you have to pay extra for 4K. And I think Disney Plus had more content, but you have to really, really get in there and look for it. And that's going to be a problem with every service that we have, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, and I will say Disney is probably in the best place because Disney owns Fox. I think between all the content that they do have available between the two, Disney Plus is going to be one of the better ones, if not tied with Netflix. I just got to say that right now they're in that weird transition period where Disney Plus didn't exist before, so they sold the rights to a lot of their movies and a lot of the Marvel movies, a lot of the TV shows from Fox. Those are still on other platforms. Those are still on Hulu and Netflix. As soon as they can get them back to Disney Plus, then Disney's going to be amazing. It's just right now, again, differing opinions. I completely respect that. I just felt like Disney's going to get better. It's just not there currently for me yet.
And how about Apple? Don't you feel the same way about Apple?
Even Apple's original shows that they had, kind of lined up, I respect them for getting Sesame Street and new episodes, directly on there. I respect them for, I think they had like an Oprah one and stuff like that. None of the even new content they had even appealed to me. Apple was just Apple was bad and kind of continues to be bad. I don't know.
Well, again, we must be two different types of TV viewers, because I found that that Apple did not have very much new content or content that they created. Matter of fact, there was very little, practically not enough to start with. But I got hooked on the morning show immediately, which was one of their main ones.
Mm-hmm.
And For All Mankind, of the one that were men go to the moon,
mm-hmm.
was so real, and it was fabulous. The whole show, I liked everything about it. So.
I will say that your opinion probably holds more weight because I've not given either of those a chance. So you're coming up.
I watched Mandalorian as well. So just to let you know that.
That was good. The
was very good.
And I got to say that. And that's something different that I think people should know about, where traditionally, and by traditionally I mean this is what Netflix has done and many people have emulated it, whenever a new show came to Netflix, they dump the whole thing. They, here's 12 episodes of a season, and here's every single season ever existed. Netflix would do these dumps, whereas Disney, I guess, to kind of stretch what little content they had at the beginning, they're doing The Mandalorian on like a weekly release schedule. And, I've heard a lot of people say, well, it builds anticipation. It's like a regular TV show. I'm looking forward to next week and what they're going to do. And then I've heard others say, they're just trying to milk me for all my money. I wish I could just sit down and binge the whole thing at once. That kind of content release schedule, how do you feel about it? And do you think it's going to, kind of become a thing for other platforms, not just Disney?
I think it already is becoming up for other platforms. I know Apple Plus is doing that. And we've got HBO Plus and Peacock, the NBC one, coming up very shortly. And in the next few months, those will be released. Then we're going to know which way they go as far as how they release the shows. I have mixed feelings about it. I really like binging. I mean, I watched Boston Legal, which is a really old show, but I was able to sit and watch 5 seasons of it on Netflix. I think it was Netflix.
Not
no,
bad.
It was on Amazon. It was on Amazon.
Yeah.
But anyway, I watched all that, and I really enjoyed every day of the week being able to sit down and watch one or watch 2 or 3 or whatever I wanted. And so I think I enjoy that a little bit more than waiting for the next feature to come on.
Mm-hmm.
And there'll be a lot of people that'll wait. Say they see this morning show and say, okay, now the whole first year series is on. So I'll subscribe, I'll watch all that, and then I'll unsubscribe. And they're going to be fighting that pretty constantly, I think.
Platform disloyalty is actually a very good thing. There's no contracts here. You're not locked in for the year. People should, and I'm sure that you told people this. Hey, if you're done watching everything on Hulu, why not jump ship and go to Disney Plus? There's nothing stopping you.
That's right. And I think it's a good idea. but I will give people one tip. And the tip is, if you're doing that, if you know for a fact you just want to watch certain shows for the next month or two, put it on your calendar. Or if it's just a month you want, you can unsubscribe the day after you subscribe. They are going to take your money for the whole month, but at the end of the month, you don't have to worry about remembering to unsubscribe.
Right. Yeah.
So.
And of course, all these little things add up to hopefully a streaming service experience that rivals that of TV. And hey, and by rival, I mean, the experience is pretty good, but then ultimately the cost, if you just keep it to 1 to 2 streaming services, you're looking at, $30, $35 as opposed to, in some cases, $200. Yeah, I've seen it. So Sandy, I want to thank you so much. This hour flew on by, and of course I hope a lot of people out there got a lot of helpful information, and hey, maybe they learned something. CompuKits.com, we have it up here on the screen. We're going to throw it up in the show notes. Sandy, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for being with me. I enjoyed it.
Our pleasure, and we'll definitely catch you next month. We'll come up with some more topics, and hey, we'll have fun with it. So Sandy, have a great month. Thank you so much. Talk to you next time.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, bye. And everyone else out there, thank you so much for tuning in to Computer America. Hey, computeramerica.com. That's about it for us, Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. and 5 p.m. Eastern. Catch you next time.